Most days with electronics nowadays, it does not.
Some days I just go home.
Yeah.
Alright, we are live.
Okay, we're live, so I'm gonna call to order the meeting, Budget Committee meeting here at the Jeff Parker Room at the Opera House, Tuesday, August 12th at 5:30, 5:35. The 7 out of the 9 Budget Committee members are present. So I think we're probably just gonna dive right on into it. Work through the agenda. So the first thing on the agenda, the docket tonight, is going over the letter from Charlton Ames and Jan Rosenbaum. I think we all got copies of that last meeting we had. I don't know if we want to just open it up to any comments from the start, or if we want to work through a line by line, or I should say an item by item on the letter, but I think probably item by item might be decent so we can see what we've addressed already and what we have yet to address on that, if we need to do anything.
Because I never got the agenda or anything. So.
I don't have any right here. I can email it to you, but that's
Oh,
probably
I
the
have
best
it
I
at home,
can
it's
do.
just I never got an
Okay.
agenda saying what we were going to discuss tonight.
Okay, so I don't have any copies for you, Helen.
If you want to come over here, you can share my written copy,
Okay,
or I can come over there.
why don't you come over there, here, because I'm sorry, my hip is killing me, and it's really hard to move. I got this thing sticking in my face.
This is the same letter.
Yeah, same letter from the last meeting,
Thank you.
which I think we got paper copies of last time, but. All right, so working down through it, Jan and Charlton submitted this letter after the budget cycle last year to both the Budget Committee, Select Board, and Town Manager. I was delayed in reading it because I didn't check my email really after the budget cycle, but here we are. So, some of the main bullets in their letter, we're writing to you to propose a method for: number 1, engaging more residents and town employees to enlarge the solutions or suggestions mix and help the buy-in. I think so far, I think what our goal is, or one of the short-term goals that we'll come up with, will be to do just that and engage the town. I think probably one avenue that we ought to at least use is put out some sort of publication in the Rockport Resource whenever the next copy of that's going out, at a minimum. Any other comments on that one?
Yeah, I think that's gonna be critical going forward, because we're really trying to do something new this year, and I think we need to get the word out to the residents and the employees too.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think at least the resource will be a good start. I don't know if we have any other input on how else to engage the town other than,
Well,
know,
later
send
on
out-
the agenda, we have this draft letter, and maybe that's the time to talk about
okay.
that, but
Okay, so at least the resource and possibly the draft letter. But again, I think that is a good point of engaging all of the town, both the town employees. I think there's gonna be a little bit of I don't know if it's a fine line that the Budget Committee wants to cross of us trying to go out and, solicit to employees in every department. I'm not sure if that is really our position.
The select board doesn't get to do that, why would we?
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
you know,
I think that's,
exactly.
we have to be cognizant that is not necessarily
we make
in
it
our
public.
bounds.
We make it public, but we can't control who reads this stuff. But I would not approach the town employees per se, that's just not our
Right.
purview.
Well, before we even do that, we have to figure out what we want to engage them in.
right? So in my mind, there's two different things. There's this coming budget that we're gonna start working on for next spring, and thinking about that. And somehow, at the same time, I think we wanna work on how does this process change? Are there structural changes that need to be made to the board? Do we need to, so in my mind, there's the immediate, and you don't go to the employees about the budget because John's gonna do that and he's gonna work with his chairs and or his leads. For the employees, but if we're thinking about how to change the process, like I've been thinking about this binder a lot and how much work goes into making this binder and whether that's a good use of that team's time, I don't think it's something that we shouldn't do to sit down with that team and say, what does it take to put this together? Is this a good use of your time? Because maybe your time could be used for this over here instead. So I want to keep separate the development of the budget, the actual budget, versus looking at our process, looking at the town's process. Because I do think we can certainly ask if the employees have guidance for us on how that process can be improved, and we'll let John work with them on the budget. That's how I would.
What do we mean by employees, budget, and the book? What do we mean by that?
Mean by, sorry.
No, I'm going back
Oh.
to Clay. So involving the employees, what do we mean by involving?
Well, where that came from was in the kind of the first suggestion from the letter was to involve engaging more residents and town employees to enlarge the solutions or suggestions mix and help the buy-in. I think what they're looking at is saying, well, let's take some feedback from the people that are in the town.
So like a round table with
Sure.
employees. Is
Yeah.
that what we're looking for? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, yes, I think that's what this is
Implying.
going after.
Okay. All right.
Where I want to be careful is saying that I don't think that is our role, is to,
For us to say.
yeah, for the budget
Yeah.
committee.
That would be more of a town manager
That would be
role,
more of John's.
right?
Right,
Yeah.
To
yeah.
say, hey, so-and-so, you're gonna skip over one level.
Right, which, this letter did go to
Yeah.
all, the town manager, budget committee, and select board, so it's not necessarily targeted at us per se, but I think we're just addressing, or at least bringing this up so that it may be a focus point on how to give us direction. Well, not how to give us direction, but some direction.
Got it.
So I think that is a good point, Steve, that we do isolate the budget
Yeah.
in itself, and then the process of creating the budget, developing the budget, and critiquing the budget, and then
Right. But some of those pieces may be longer term.
Executing.
It might take us 3 years to get to a new sort of approach, but we gotta have a budget next year, so we can't. We have to
Sure.
run on parallel timelines that are not gonna match.
right, yeah, and do two different tasks.
Right, yeah.
I mean, is what Charlton and, is it Jan?
Jan,
Yeah, so Jan and Charlton, what they're probably trying to get to was the people doing the work every day
Right.
could give the feedback
Yeah.
on how to save money.
agreed, yeah,
So maybe and I don't think it's our role to meet with the employees, but they would know best on what's wasteful money and what's not wasteful money.
certainly, yeah, yeah,
So
and
maybe
yeah,
that's where they're going with it.
right. I think
Presumably,
so.
they tell their department head, I'm sure, I know most of the department heads, we all do, and I'm sure they talk to their employees. Employees make suggestions, but I don't think we should go out asking for them.
No, I think what they're necessarily going after is that maybe they should be, maybe there should be more emphasis on whatever position it is in the town, whether it be John or the town manager or whoever, to engage more than just department heads.
You could make a recommendation to do a skip level, right? I mean,
Sure,
you could
yeah.
make that type of recommendation, that John do that, and maybe he does, I don't know, but.
Right. Yeah,
You
as I
know.
was going to say, it's really sort of lean management philosophy, right? It's like
Yeah, right.
Toyota, go to the people on the shop floor and, have them tell you what's wrong with the process, which is not a bad management philosophy to look at.
Well, that's good, yeah.
But I don't think that's our role.
Right.
Aside from,
Right.
aside from just saying,
I agree.
We
this
could
is a goal for
recommend
the
that,
town, you know, maybe we
John.
say the goal, you know, the town should look into something like this.
Yeah,
But I think it's our goal to question that it's happening.
Right, definitely, yeah, sure.
yeah. Well, that would be a recommendation to the town manager, perhaps, as we
Right.
work through this.
Sure, yeah.
I'm sort of observing a misguided intent. And if we were to say, what would it take for this committee to say, oh, there already is a structure in place where the employees talk to the department heads, and the department heads get through to John, and then that is reflected in the budget. It kind of feels as though we're just going to go straight ahead anyway without, having that conversation. And one of the things that you'll notice, I will speak up uncharacteristically so, about staff time. I mean, it'd be really ironic for this committee to say, let's save money and then spend $5,000 over the course of the year doing that. Really? So the question is, I'm all for looking at all the avenues, but we can ask high-level questions, and if they're answered, do we believe them?
Well,
But,
that's,
and I think it's important that we do believe them, because that's who we're working with.
you started off, Jeff, by saying there is a process in place. My argument would be that process is broken. If you look at the tax increases for the last 4 years, it's just not working. And I've said it before at this committee, to do the same thing over and over and over again, expecting a different result, is the definition of insanity. So, I don't think we can just say there's already a process in place, let's just work around the edges. I'm looking at a paradigm shift.
How do you, how do you see that the process is causing the increase in taxes?
Well, for instance, I think that, and I don't, I've been around long enough, but my understanding is that John will ask the department managers to come in and say what they need for their budget. Now, that's already a loaded question for them because they want everything. I don't blame them. If I manage department, they said, put together a budget and come bring it to me. I want nice new shiny trucks. I want this, I want that. But wouldn't it might be better if Jonathan said to all the department heads, I want you to put together a budget that is 5% less than last year. And then, because if you do it for everybody and just call it good, it punishes the high achievers also. You don't want to do that. But tell people, cut your budgets by 5%, then come and we'll talk. And if you're a high performer and you've had a good performance, we can give you some of those things back. And if you're not a high performer, well, sorry, you'll get by with 5% less this year. So that's a whole different process than how it's been done for as long as I'm aware of the process.
I don't know, Jeff, do you remember, I was under the impression that in some years, the town manager, not necessarily John at the moment, but others, have asked for a zero increased budget.
Well, there was one year where the select board
Yeah,
said, present us with a 0, a 1, and a 2. And, that was a whole lot of work for a budget that returned at sort of a normal rate, and it was jousting. I think maybe, and maybe this is timed wrong, but I think what we do have to recognize is if we took $750,000 out of the budget, would this committee be happy? And if that's what it would take, just pure numbers, the other way of looking at it is, have we gotten ourselves into situations that some people disagree with? We have new ambulance and we got things going on in the building and all that sort of thing. Those are really big ticket items. They're also the place where you go first to pick up another 200,000, whether, you know, to decline, reduce the budget by that. But the potential damage that we do to the long-term relationship of our employees by having them jump through hoops, particularly in that year, that was a hugely demoralizing year
Yeah.
for the employees. I don't remember whether we lost any because of it, but it really was a tough, you know, it was tough for them to get their work done because of this mandate from the select board. So, sorry, I could wrap that up, but my train derailed.
Well, back on the letter, so if the point is how do we engage residents, town employees, one of the recommendations that comes out of this meeting is going to John and saying, we would love to know more about how you engage the employees in some of these discussions. And then we can determine, does that seem good? Does he give us a sense that he's engaging employees to this idea of the frontline folks know kind of where the, you know, where the hard points are, where there's some barriers or whatever, and we can talk to them about that before I don't think any of us are advocating going and starting knocking on doors and popping up in the office and asking people questions. I think we go to John, say this letter speaks to engaging the town employees. To what degree do you engage the town employees in this? Is it working? Why do you think it's working? And then we can go from there.
All right, thank you.
Sounds great.
And I would add, like, I jumped on this committee because of the residents. Like, I'm a local, been here forever. I want to see my neighbors still live here. And it's getting very, like, cost effective for them to live here, which is tough, really tough. But I also think with this letter, involving employees is a good thing. I don't think we need to involve employees with us. But I also don't think the employees are being involved right now, which is where you're going to learn the most about your savings. So I think that's very important. Like, how can we save, like, the last 5-6 years, like, we could save money right now. So how can we make it so blanket wide, it's affordable to live here? And I don't think doing increase over increase is okay. So I think the hard questions need to be asked, cuts need to be made, and go from there. But yeah, but I don't think, like, our job is to talk to the employees, but our job is to make sure those conversations are being had.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I like that. A little bit of pressure, essentially. All right, moving on to note number 2, lengthening the working time to provide a better annual budget and better plans for the future.
Think we're doing that?
I
I
think
think
we're,
you're doing that.
yeah, we're basically
Check.
nailing that right
Yeah,
on,
we can check that one.
on the head. Moving on to number 3, utilizing the comprehensive plan as a yardstick for measuring budget goals, success, and failures to keep us aligned with our agreed-upon future in uncertain times. I think that might be one thing that we have to include ourselves, or include more in the budget cycle. Last year, there was really not much mention even. There was some, but not a whole lot of mention of the plan as a whole.
Of the comp plan?
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't done.
Wasn't
So
approved.
that, I think, is certainly a good point that we do need to include that. We need to focus on that just to see, as they say, use that as a yardstick for measuring where we're at. I think the other thing to think about too is not just the comp plan, the comprehensive plan, but the capital improvement plan, which we, I think, have, you know, on our budget timetable this year is actually coming through. One reason, at least I think the capital improvement plan is going to be important to us this year as well, is because the last couple of years where we've had big cuts, we have not focused on that, and your capital items are obviously the fastest way to spend money. And if we're not spending that effectively, then I think that's going to be an issue. So I think going forward, we do actually just need to sit down and take a minute and look at both the comprehensive plan and capital improvement plan as we work through the budget cycle and keep that on our radar this year.
Yeah, in the past, they have. I can remember meetings, I don't know if it was during the the March, April process where we would go through the comprehensive plan. It's always in the back of the budget book, but definitely bringing it forward sooner in the season so we can look at it and not just sort of as, oh, there it is, let's look at it.
Yeah, and I
sort of
think
thing.
the other thing to note too is that what will even make this more important for us is since was it 2 years ago when the Capital Improvement Committee disbanded or whatever the correct word is there. I think that's kind of what led to that going by the wayside.
Well, our former public works person used to have a 5-year plan, and he had everything spaced out, and it was, and then all of us, I don't know,
It's easy to rob from his budget. Oh, we can do with less tar. on
yeah,
the
no, but I
streets.
mean in terms of the big budget items, remember, he had a 5-year plan to replace everything and
Yeah,
the
and
paving and
The
everything.
police
and-
have the same
Right,
plan.
yeah, and,
Everybody's, you know, and there are, you know, we'll be in a position to point out that the decision to retire a police car before 100,000, which seems to be a magic number in terms of value, you know, we could have something to say about that and a whole bunch of things like that. But I think most of the departments that have big annual expenditures are very cognizant of
Yeah.
working on the plan.
it just seemed that there was a period there after that person left that it sort of, I don't know.
I
Didn't
think
become
it's a
some-
worthy goal. I think it might be rather onerous. My understanding is the comprehensive plan is several hundred pages long, and, you know, to kind of dig through there and extract ideas for our budget, you know, it certainly can be done. Maybe that's what AI is for, but.
Funny you should say.
But it could be pretty onerous.
I think also we have this new comp plan implementation committee for which I have an
right.
application in my inbox. So I think the intention is that people from committees like this one sit on it as well, so that you can, you know, some people on the committee can be more informed about the comp plan than others. But I do think it's a useful framing. I don't think, to me, I don't read that one vis-a-vis the budget committee as, you know, we all need to look for, you know, things to spend money on in the comp plan, but really to frame, sort of set the context for, is this going in the right direction? Is sort of how I read that, personally.
But when you say, is it going in the right direction, you mean, are we going in the right direction, or is the comp plan going in the right direction?
Is the budget going in, you know, if this is the plan, yeah, at least thinking, you know, I have a private organizational background, but thinking, you know, what is the vision of the company? What's the vision of the town? That's sort of how I think.
Right.
You know, this is the vision, and are we working towards that vision, or are we not? And so I think, you know, the budget should work towards the vision in a cost-efficient way, is sort of how I see it. And that's, I think, the budget committee's goal. And then, you know, whatever select board town thinks, you know, to bring from the comp plan into the budget, you know, for a given year is certainly something for us to discuss. You know, is now the right time to spend the money on that or whatever, but I don't know if that makes sense. But I do think it's a useful, you know, we have it, it sets the visions purportedly, so we should use it.
Are we relying on the recording to create our notes from this meeting? Is that the strategy?
I think,
We're recording.
yes.
And
more
I'm
or less.
taking a couple, but I'm not going to say that those are exhaustive.
Okay, yeah, I say that because our backup is down.
I forgot who's here, but.
Yeah,
So it's on outline.
so we have, what's there has better work.
Fair enough. Okay, so I think moving on to the fourth point, maintaining a goal of limiting budget increases to a level aligned with inflation. I think that was something that was, you know, we kind of alluded to before of setting, you know, just a flat, let's say 3% or whatever domestic inflation might be at that time. Goal, I think that's going to be tough. You know, the last couple of years, we have had relatively large changes in the town also, so i.e. EMS budget, which, you know, that in itself was a huge cost to the town. And if we were to say, you know, we can only grow this town budget by 3% this year, but we also want to add EMS, I think we have to be able to look at big steps like that and separate those from a flat inflation increase, because if we took that much, if we increased the budget that much, just from EMS to decrease that, you know, to get that much money cut from a budget somewhere usually ends up coming from someone's roads.
Well,
Just because
you know,
it's-
again, I don't think we have to just do a flat cut across all the boards. Like I said, you're penalizing the high performers then if you do that, and sort of rewarding the low performers. But if you set that as sort of a goal, and then let the town manager work with each department head, you know, you say, geez, you know, we need to increase EMS by 10%, and there's a legitimate reason to do that. And then they may look at, I'm just picking a department, assessing. Well, you know, you haven't been doing a lot of work recently, you're not kind of getting there, so make do with the 3% for this year, let's see how it goes next year. So, again, I'm against the flat rate, but I like the idea of picking a flat rate number, telling the town, the department heads to come up with the budget, and then work with them. You know, if they need more, that's fine.
The other thing I feel really strongly about is that, and the biggest part of our budget is wages, that if we don't give our employees a cost of living increase, that's, in my mind, that's not an increase. That's staying level with your buying power, which is why the number was created. And that has such a huge impact on the budget that we won't have anything else. You know, it's just fait accompli. There's a 3% of the overall budget. I mean, but you get there's a $200,000 or $300,000, but you don't have another million that comes into that. It just wouldn't happen.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, we do need to stay online with our neighboring towns. We lost so many people because we were paying X and they were paying Y. And we did even some of that out over the last few years.
Yeah, we grabbed some back.
Yeah, we got a few back, but still.
Well, go ahead.
I don't know if inflation is the right target, but I'm intrigued by the idea of a target. So when I was in the legislature 20 years ago and knocked on all these doors, if you guys remember back that far, property tax relief was the big thing. We got to do property tax relief. Property taxes were out of sight. We went over to Augusta. We passed LD1. I don't know if anybody remembers this, but one of the consequences of LD1 is there was a target that was put in the town report, and the town budget had to stay under that target. And if I remember right, the town even had to make an extra, like on the ballot, you had to say, yes, I'm prepared to exceed that target. And it was an attempt by Augusta, for the legislature, to figure out some way to put downward pressure on municipal budgets. And if you look at town reports 10 years ago, there was a line, and you could track over time. This was the target line, this is where we were relative to the target line, and at least you had something in there to indicate where you were. And if I look back 15 years, it worked. I mean, from 2013 to 2022, the town's budget went up an average of about 5% a year. It went up some years bigger, and other years it went down, actually, believe it or not. But in the 4 years since then, it's gone up 16.8% per year for 4 straight years. So something has come unglued here, that we went from a pretty standard 4 or 5% rise every year, probably greater than inflation, town costs and whatever. But somehow we've, in my mind, we've become unanchored from any kind of target that we're trying to approach. Again, I don't know that inflation is the target, could be. I'd have to go back and look at how the state sort of defined the target. I do know that that chart that showed us with the target line vanished out of the town report about 5 years ago. I don't know why, I don't know what happened to the law, I've lost track of all that. But I would like to put a pin in the idea that somehow there's a target that the people of the town can see when they go to the ballot. This is where we are, this is the increase, this is where we are relative to the target that we've set, something, because this is, to your point, this is not sustainable. And that's why I'm on the committee, because I don't understand what happened 4 years ago, that we went off the rails. and are spending 16% more one year, 13% the next year, 26% the year after that, 10% the year after that, like, that's just not sustainable. So some target, maybe it's related to the comprehensive plan thing, I don't know. But I'm intrigued by that idea. Again, I don't know that inflation's it, but I think we should think about, is there a way to reestablish some kind of benchmark that we're up against that makes the town think twice. If they want to raise, look, they voted for all this, they want the budget to go up 26%, enough of them did, I guess. But we have to be confident we're giving them enough information about what this means, that the decisions they make are the right decisions. But
Well, how much of that 1620 was the library and the EMS?
I don't know, I'd have to look, I don't know.
A
The EMS
target
office
is-
is a huge one, it's like
Right.
$1 million, whatever.
A target is so worthwhile because it at least focuses everybody's attention. You know, otherwise, you're just picking numbers out of the air. But if you come up with a target, not everybody's gonna make the target, some people will exceed the target, but at least you have a starting point.
I think the one thing not the one thing, one of many things on my mind is, you know, the EMS. I was pretty surprised that there weren't more hoo-ha about that, you know, because, and not be, you know, regardless of the merits, you know, we need emergency services, of course, you know, somehow or another, but
Which
I
kind of hoo-ha, the yay, congratulations, or it's too much money?
in the town, because it is a lot of money, and I think the way, you know, I think in some sense, the town places too much emphasis on the annual increase, and so, oh, this is a tough budget year because it's a, you know, 26% increase, oh, but it's because it's the EMS. No, it's actually that you're introducing a perpetuity. So we are now spending $1.5 million forever. So it's not a tough budget year. It's every year after this is a tough budget year. Right. And that is, I think, the thing. And, you know, again, not to knock the EMS, but I don't think that, you know, and I think this process, having the budget committee come in sooner, hopefully will address a lot of that. Just by working, you know, new departments get added, we should be a part of that conversation in a really big way, I think, and not just at the end when it's, you know, a fait accompli. So, you know, I think obviously if the town wants to go ahead with adding a new department, that's going to be a big budget increase. But if that's the town's will, that's the town's will, and it should, you know, the town should get its will. But I think that we need to draw a sharp line between what's like an increase in annual expenditure and what's a, you know, huge new cost. It would be, you know, the biggest thing that I'm worried about. And I think the other thing, you know, setting a goal, I completely agree, is exactly what we should do. And I don't think it's at all unreasonable to, you know, if you want to add something, you have to give up something else. I mean, that's how, you know, most organizations that I've been in work. You know, you can't have everything. You know, you just because you want something new doesn't mean you know, can just materialize the funding for it the way, you know, municipalities can.
Well, perhaps we should ask John to bring back the LD1. I remember voting on it in budget meetings, whether we would exceed it or not.
Yeah. And I don't know what changed in the law, maybe that's
Yeah,
not a requirement.
You're right, it just
But
disappeared. out
that
of
was
the
a helpful
process.
sort of benchmark.
Yeah.
Okay. So after that was the propose a method section of the letter. Next was the recommendations that they put forth. So recommendation A, the select board should increase its recognition of the budget committee's responsibilities and they should work closer together. I think that's going to be a tough one. There's probably quite a few different opinions on this one. I don't think at any point necessarily that the select board has not recognized us as a committee enough, because we as a committee have not put forth enough effort to be recognized outside of the cycle. Some of that because of the process was not susceptible to that. So I think we're already on the right path for that, basically, but I think the select board has shown that at least they're willing to listen, willing to work together. They're here tonight, so it's obviously, I think we're on the right direction for that, and I don't think we ever haven't been. I think we just need to keep
Well,
on
there is
keeping
a
on.
little history there, as you know, a couple of years ago. This committee was apparently very dysfunctional. They came up with a budget, everybody agreed with it, and then at the last minute, the budget committee voted 0 to 5 or 0 to 9 or whatever to not approve the budget, and that created a whole mess over at the town office and blah, blah, blah. And that's what led to the charter being redone, so that we didn't have as much say when it came to the warrant and everything, because they wanted to avoid exactly what had happened that year. And Helen, you're probably more familiar with it, because I think you were on with Mark Kelly and everything.
Yeah.
But having said that, I agree that the current select board really does want to hear from us and is going to work with us and be collaborative, although the charter is still the same, so we'll have to kind of wait and see how that plays out. So just, I wanted to add that historical note.
And it may be that through the process, we look back at the charter language and decide that something needs to change.
And I was listening, like, the last meeting, I kind of stayed quiet, but is there a reason why the budget committee that spends all the time looking over it, their vote isn't on the ballot?
Would you like to go off record and do
That
the
was
reason I will
the-
tell
I'm
you?
That was
not
the
very
change.
political, so sorry.
That was
But,
step-
I mean,
That was the
That was the
change that
change.
was made.
all right, I'm just saying, like, is there a reason why we can't get back to there? Because, I mean, there's two different groups looking thoroughly through it.
Yeah.
There should be two different opinions, in my opinion.
There's no reason we couldn't go back. One, you could change the charter, or, again, you could have a collaborative relation with the select board, so when the time came to
Right.
put the warrant together,
Yeah, I just feel like
Every-
this last year, very few votes
Yeah.
swung it.
Yep.
And I felt myself like it would have been a great opportunity to take that number back and rethink how the money's being spent. And it would have made a huge impact on the population.
I'm sorry, I don't understand, take that money
So,
back.
so when I went to vote, you know, and, you know, my name was on the ballot for the budget, but I looked at the budget and it passed by, was it 39 and 37 votes?
Townwide.
Not much. So either way, it's not a win, in my opinion, because it's so close. But if someone walked into that voting booth without doing their research, and I had gone on and watched the videos of select board, budget committee, like I was in tune. I knew what was going on. I knew what I was voting on. Most people that walk in there don't really know what they're voting on. They're voting on a number. I feel like if there was a budget committee that said 1 year it could be 9-0, 1 year it could be 5-4, 4-5, whatever it was, and then select board 5-0, 3-2. I just feel like having two different parties saying this is what we suggest is you know, valuable. It's huge. And I feel like and by what I watched on the budget committee, and I don't know what the numbers would have been, but I don't think it would have been favorable of the budget. I think that would have spoken volume to those 37, 39 votes that swung it.
From the perspective of those people who think that there wasn't enough information at the ballot time, my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that the fact that there was no, budget committee votes X to X on this matter was because we didn't vote on it. We had no recommendations. So then, no recommendations, nothing appeared in the black and white version of the ballot sitting in front of you.
So if the budget committee had recommendations and they voted, it would have appeared on the ballot?
Certainly my
I
understanding.
don't think
See,
so.
yeah,
The way, I
that-
don't,
no,
I
if-
don't
if-
think,
I
But-
could be wrong.
We were told we couldn't vote, was
Well,
my
yeah.
understanding.
The difference was if the warrant said something to the effect of the budget committee had no recommendations, which is accurate in that we did
It's
not
true.
pass recommendations
Which is true,
in the budget
right.
committee. What was not on the ballot that used to be on the ballot was a final vote by the budget committee,
Right.
yay or nay on the whole budget. That's what got stripped out. because of the changes to the charter. So that that piece of information
That's very
for the
valuable.
voters no longer exists. So if the budget committee would have to pass whatever recommendations by a majority, otherwise they don't appear. So those of us who opposed the budget and were on the budget committee had no way to convey our disapproval of the budget to the public.
You did through recommendation. I mean, you could have
No.
made a recommendation.
Only if I'd gotten it passed by the whole committee.
No, the recommendation
no.
would appear as a split vote.
Nope.
No,
As long as it was a majority vote. Anything,
Right.
No, the
fi-
recommendation had to be enacted by the full committee to have appeared.
I just feel like in the past, it's always been a vote. So you've always
It
saw.
always was. That's
budget
correct.
and
Until a
select
few
board.
years ago.
And that's like, as a voter, before I was on the planning board for a short time period. But before, like, that's what I really leaned into, a committee that was based on budget. Nothing against select board, but like they're seeing everything. Budget committee kind of like, they dig their heels in.
Yeah.
So
Well, the other-
You're giving the voters less information.
yeah, the
That's
other
the
issue,
result.
it was this year, the year before, things were clumped. When we used to meet upstairs, every single section was a thing, and there was
Had
a.
an opportunity for discussion, every single section.
Right, everything was there for discussion, everything was, the Budget Committee approves this section, they approve that one, they don't approve that one, whatever. But we don't get that anymore, it's all lumped in big chunks, and you go, what the
Right, I
is
agree.
going on? There's no information, they
if
don't
you're
know
not in the
that.
day by day, you
Yeah.
don't know what those numbers mean.
Well,
Yeah,
and you
and they
don't,
don't know if it's 10% is for paving, 10% is for ditching, 5% is for this, and
Yeah.
you don't know. Do you know how
And
much you
you're-
pay to mow cemeteries?
A lot. If Eric was here, he'd say, let's
Yeah.
get the moss.
So there's no, the public doesn't have the information.
well, I think that I agree completely. I think not only do they not have the information, they don't have any way of expressing what they're unhappy about when you're voting on a magnum,
That's
on
exactly right.
this budget, you know,
Yeah,
it's.
I mean, people yell that there aren't that many people that showed up, but
Right.
boy, we had some damn fun time up
Right.
there discussing the budget.
But if you watch these meetings right here, you're informed.
Yeah.
But, I
But if you
mean,
don't,
a
right.
lot of people do not watch the
Yeah, but
meetings.
you're,
Get a life.
I get bored at night, so I just watch the town of Rockport meetings.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I don't want to lose sight of that observation, which is huge. I don't know what the response of the select board or the town manager or the town leadership was to that budget squeaking by 30-some odd votes. I don't know what lesson they took from that. I don't know whether, I mean, I'd like to think we're being engaged here because somebody got the message that we're going to have to do something here. But that didn't provide good, in the defense of the town, it didn't provide good information about what the town was unhappy about. That's an outstanding point. And somehow we need to get more information to voters about the budget, and we need the voters to give us more information about what it is in the budget that they are having a hard time.
Yep.
And maybe it's just a big round number at the end of it, and the budget's doubled in 4 years, and maybe that's what it is, but.
Is that budget book at the library or the town office where people can come in and look at it?
Town office.
Is it online so they can?
it is
Those who are more
online.
think it is-
technical
it is
can pull it
online.
up and look at
It's
it?
online, yeah.
Maybe we need to encourage
Yeah.
the public to do that before we go into the,
I'd rather have a discussion about the utility of this book before we decide to put this out before the
Okay.
town. It's 500 pages, 700
I
pages,
know.
whatever it is,
The average person is not gonna be able
Yeah.
to take that book and be able to truly understand
Right.
yeah.
what the impact is.
right. But a 20-page version of this,
Mm-hmm.
an
Right.
18-page version of this, something.
How are you
We
gonna
can
solve
do
it?
something better than no information on the ballot and this.
How are you going to
Consolidation is
compress it?
key.
What do you see as a way of compressing?
I don't know, I mean, that would be something for us to explore. Like, how can we get this down to a third of its size?
It becomes an opinion piece at that point, 20 pages.
We couldn't
Well,
do like a
not necessarily. I
three-pager?
mean,
Three-pager by department head and just,
Well, how many
Here's where the
pages
money's
actually have
going.
numbers on them? I mean, the entire back 50 pages or so of the comprehensive plan, the this
Right.
plan, the that thing.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah. Well, the beginning of the capital improvement plan is page 347 of 543.
okay.
So you've got 350 pages of budget stuff.
But how many pages in there are actually the budget? I
Well,
mean,
it's
Less than
at
that,
least
but not much
historic-
less.
And there's a lot of context.
The
and
stuff in the
Yeah.
beginning
Context,
that's probably
Looking back
50
5 years
pages.
and this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
Well, so I mean, I guess that's a good thing to put on my non-exhaustive list of notes.
I think one of the important things that this committee should do and has done in the past is be cyclical. By that, I mean, what does it tell you when you have voters saying, yes, this big chunk, yes, this big chunk, yes, this big chunk? Then you get to the bottom and say, no bloody way. You know, that is like, yeah, I think that's a good idea. And yes, I, as an individual, support EMS and that, looking at the big groups. But then you say, oh my God. I think one of the things that this committee could do is to go through that process of thinking over and over and over again and reiterate and come up with a smaller number at the bottom that won't freak people out. Or even the very effort well publicized in the town saying these guys are really doing their work and they're up against the hard decisions. But we have to go, I would say, go through 3 major rounds of reiterative process, because so often, I mean, what does it mean that approved, final big number, oops, nope, don't like it. You already got there, you already approved everything on the list, and you didn't like the effect at the end. So I think that that's one of the things that this committee could be spending their time on.
Absolutely.
I agree with that. So I guess to recap, there's going to be just some stuff that I think we're going to, be in contact with John about some of the lessons learned from the town employee side of that. And then we also just, it again comes back to the high points and how we can convey that message to the public, or that information to the public prior to vote next year.
And I think at a minimum, we should look into the, getting a vote on the ballot from the budget committee. I think that we should look into whether there's a better way to present it on the warrant. But at a minimum, we should do something else on the warrant, if possible. I was unclear, last meeting when we were looking at those documents. Recommendation is an extremely vague word. A recommendation could be construed as a vote by the budget committee, right?
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah,
It's
right.
maybe stretching the language. I'm not a lawyer, but it seems we should clarify what we can put on there, and if we can't put what we want to, we should look at the process, or look at the charter or whatever. I think.
Okay, so I think the next step with regards to that stuff will be, maybe I can at least touch base with John before next meeting and kind of pick his brain and see where we're at with those, and at least get them on his radar that we will be addressing all of those, for better or for worse. All right, so moving on to letter B, recommendation B, authorize the budget committee chair to investigate key budgetary issues such as healthcare costs, sharing resources with other towns, capital improvement plans, public safety issues, climate resilience planning, and insurance costs. When appropriate, the budget committee chair should be allowed to consult with outside expertise.
You okay with all that, Clay?
There's a lot on you, Clay.
I think that,
Well, I would assume
think
that would allow
that's-
him to set up a committee to do it.
yeah, I think,
Get back to us on that.
yeah, that's a little
Designate
aggressive.
others.
Yeah, I think what some of this could break out into is like when according to the timetable, we referenced getting, I forget where it is, the ad hoc personnel committee meets to prepare for recommendations. So I think, what might not necessarily be me, but committees can be made to investigate specific objections or goals.
Yeah. I think you have that authorization anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I don't,
I don't know that
I
there's
think
a
again,
change that we need to
it
make.
may just come back to what is the bounds of it. I don't necessarily think that I should be strolling down to Allen Agency and asking, hey, what can we do about insurance costs on the town? That may be going outside of of our realm. I think there's certainly questions to be had, and maybe if we wanted to investigate that, something that important, we're gonna come up with a committee, we're gonna involve the select board, town manager, everyone who would actually execute those decisions.
Yeah, I think one thing that we could do without a committee, doesn't need any fuss or anything, is just request monthly information from the EMS service about what their expenses were and then what the actual income was. John has tried to be more transparent about the number of runs and things like that, and those are, you know, interesting to see, but the bottom line is, of the runs that are reimbursable, what's the payer mix, and how much money do those people give or send to the town to pay for that? And, you know, that's simple. Medical reimbursements run about 3 months behind, so we're probably just starting to get that information now. But, you know, it's there, and all you need are 2 figures. You know, what were our expenses for the month, and what was our reimbursement from the different payers as one number. You don't even have to break it down by payer. So, you know, they spent $500,000 and they, you know, got $600,000 in revenue. That's simple, doesn't need a committee. I suspect it'll be pretty painful for some people, but, you know, that's why we're here.
When you say it'll be pretty painful for some people, you mean it'll be painful looking at the total value, the total cost to the town? Or you mean it'll be painful because it will take of the work that it will take to create that number?
No, the number's easy. Like I say, that's a button push. I'm afraid that for quite a while, our expense is gonna way exceed our income. You know, I listen to the scanner, I hear Warren get calls, Union gets calls, Rockland gets calls, St. George gets calls. You know, occasionally there's a Rockport call. Is it a reimbursable call, or are they just picking someone up off the floor? We need to know how much revenue they're generating, and that should be just a boom, you know, 150,000.
And what is it that the budget committee would do with that information?
Hey, it's information. You know, we'd show it to people.
Well, part of the rationale for selling this to the town was that there were reimbursable expenses.
Yeah.
So it's certainly within the budget committee's purview to say, are we seeing the return on investment that we were told we were going to get?
You know, I'll be honest, Jeff, I think what it'll do is help prompt everybody, the town, to start to look at regionalizing that service. And I know there's problems with Camden, everything else, but, you know, a small municipal freestanding EMS service in this day and age is probably not sustainable for very long.
You're finding 300 years of political and social organization in New England. It's
Oh, yeah,
all
yeah.
about towns,
Yeah,
not
yeah,
counties.
absolutely. You know, everybody's got to have their own library, their own police, their fire department. And now we have to have our own ambulance. But
Until
that's a
people
key-
stop approving the budgets.
Well, that's part of the issue
That's
too.
gonna have to start happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think anything should be off the table just because the EMS passed a couple of years ago. I don't think we should consider it, this is just going to sail on indefinitely as the way it is. I think, we should be constantly looking for ways to improve it. Maybe it's, we keep a municipal EMS, but we figure out a different way to streamline it or
Yeah.
increase the revenue, and maybe it's we regionalize, and maybe it's,
And they know they're under a microscope. That's the biggest major increase in town services. 8 full-time employees. I mean, it's a staggering increase for the town. And they have to be under a microscope. They know that. So I'm not saying we need to start a committee or do any of that, but I think you're right. I think we're gonna need more data because that was a huge commitment. I don't remember anything like it since I've been here for 25 years. So it
Just simple
deserves,
revenue and expense.
yeah,
It's
it
like any
deserves some
department,
attention.
you know?
which of course is not to knock, I'm sure they do great work,
Yeah.
of course, and I'm sure we all agree. We just need to be making sure the costs add up too.
Okay, I think that'll be, I think that would be a doable thing, especially if we could incorporate that into somewhat of, just keeping it on the radar for what we already have for a budget timetable when we have select board and budget committee members, meetings. If there's certain information we know we're gonna be wanting at every meeting as we're going through, if they're monthly or bi-monthly, semi-monthly, whatever, then we can, it may turn out to be a somewhat fluid process. And it might not be limited to just EMS.
Yep, that's right.
Okay. So moving on to recommendation C, engage with and respond to the residents, employees, and Rockport taxpayers more deeply, starting long before the budget is voted upon. I think that's the horse we've already beat on for a little bit. I don't think there's anything necessarily new that will come up with that. Understood. Recommendation D, conduct neighborhood informational budget meetings to present budgetary issues and solicit feedback, as well as buy-in. I am not necessarily sure I understand the full scope of that one.
Well, I think that having been on the comp plan that Charlton headed up, I think what he's doing is pulling from that experience. And while the numbers were very low, the experience was very important, that each of the villages felt as though, and this was for the comp plan, so it's like, what are we going to do for the next 20 years in the future? Oh my God, I don't want this or something. They had a place to ask questions and to express their concerns. So I think this is a direct growth out of the success of that. The timing, if you do it too early, all you're going to do is get complaints that revolve around last year's budget. And if you do it right in the middle of budget season, we'll all be living with each other. So thank you, but no. But it's, it certainly is a strong, it's a valuable consideration to do that.
I think it'd be useful.
I gotta disagree, no surprise, but, having been on the select board and library committees during the building and stuff, you go around to these places and a lot of times it's like the 20 same people show up. They just move from Clam Cove and then you have your next one over in Rockville and then you have one. And it's the same 20 people saying the same things. And, I understand it, sort of as a feel-good thing, but boy, it's a lot of time for long run for a short slide.
Well, I think definitely it'd have to be weighed against the time commitment of the staff and the committees and everything. And and maybe it doesn't look like a one in every neighborhood, but going from 0 to 1, I think would be a useful addition.
Well, hold it here. And
Yeah,
Right, exactly.
Yeah, that's fine,
Or
sure.
at the library.
Exactly. Yeah, and I'm sure it's going to be a small crowd. There aren't as many people as interested in this as us, but
Yeah, I think in my head, I'm not really sure necessarily why we need to be having any additional meetings outside of our proposed monthly meetings that are open to the public for anyone that wants to join. Plus, I'm foreseeing that we as a committee will also have some outside of our timetable, proposed timetable, that the public is certainly more than welcome at.
I definitely agree. My caveat to that is, to some extent, the medium is the message. And so when you look at the schedule and you see select board budget review meeting, that doesn't yes, it's open to the public. It doesn't exactly sound like they're inviting the public in, though, right? And so if you if you're say like public budget review, meeting or whatever in the Opera House, it's in a bigger venue, it just immediately communicates that, oh, this is something that I could come to. And I guarantee you'd get a lot of random people showing
Well,
up.
the resiliency committee had,
Right.
started off with 75 people, and then the same 20 people came in the last one. But that was, lot of outreach to
Right.
bring people in. And there's a big difference between public may attend versus, hey, we're offering this evening to, listen to your questions and what have you.
Feed
Yeah, I
them
like
and they
that.
will come.
Okay.
Feed them and
I-
they will come.
I think we'll
Hey,
focus that more
Yeah.
towards, I guess, from what I'm hearing, more towards this, early in the budget process, I guess, but in that cycle, so like January, February timeframe, you're thinking?
I think you're right, and that's why I posed that question, later part is you're working with the real numbers, but oh my God, you got no time. And earlier part, it's, but it could be reflective, so January, February. And you know what? Bean supper, we got a kitchen. Bring them in, but, and I think that is, perhaps, to Doug's point, it's, maybe we're not really looking for a common theme of comments, but what we're doing is a buy-in. That we're saying we are open, grab us in the supermarket as well as this meeting that you came to.
Okay. With relation to when the budget comes out, are you thinking they're gonna be looking at the actual, published budget and then coming to us after? Or this is just a higher level, hey, I'm seeing this in the town, we're spending money on this and we shouldn't be?
Yeah, even though John has moved the budget up a month,
Yeah,
I think it's prior to that. I think it's,
Okay.
tell us, that goes along with the whole theme of, I voted for all these clumps, yes, but I got to the end and said no. Well, let's deal with specifics.
sure.
Because that's the basic job of this committee, and in the past, it's been looking at specifics and saying, yeah, let's go and take 300 out of the paving because we think we can get away with it and that sort of thing. So, I think the buy-in individually and the little bit of a spread that has is as important as the information you get. But I'm a media guy, so what do I know?
I think you'd want an online, some type of a survey or some place for people to leave stuff online. You can't, it'd be hard for people to get. And also, look, you're gonna come to that meeting and say, and you're gonna hear from the Opera House people who want the Opera House and the library people who want the library. And so, you need a safe space for people to say, like, my kids are not gonna be able to grow up here if we don't do something about this. So you wanna have a parallel sort of online portal, I don't know,
Sure,
something.
which I think we might also kind of come to
Yeah.
with Doug's letter as well.
And it could be to Doug's letters about suggestions.
Sure,
Where
yeah.
should we look? Yeah.
Okay. Moving on. Recommendation E, conduct an employee meeting to encourage ideas to improve efficient delivery of services and reduce costs. Perhaps provide a monetary award based on a percentage of savings realized from good ideas. I think that is so far out of our scope.
Yeah.
yeah.
We're just gonna move on to the next one unless anyone has any dire thoughts on that.
What would be?
Yeah.
I got a question.
Yeah.
So with that one, I mean, that's a great suggestion, not for us. But shouldn't that conversation be going on with someone else with the town?
Like John.
Yeah, I mean, I think
I mean,
that's
I'm
what
just
we
saying,
referenced
like-
earlier is that,
Like, I know folks that work for the town.
yeah, yeah,
And my employees can tell me every day on how to do my job better. If I don't listen to them, then I don't grow.
sure.
So I
yeah.
think, I mean, I don't think we can pass over that.
No, I think it's just that.
I don't think
my,
it's our
my first,
job,
my
but-
first note that I have is to, basically engage John, talk
Right.
with John, see what he's doing, see what his process is.
Yeah, I think it goes back more, I mean, not to call it John, but I think it goes back on John, because I mean, if we have a 16% increase year over year, like what's happening? What's changing? Who's being held accountable?
Yeah,
So, I mean, and when I look around the town, the budget we have, do I feel like my money's being well spent? I don't.
sure,
so-
yeah.
I mean, it's a hard conversation to have, but I think the employees can definitely give the best feedback possible.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah,
So,
we just
yeah.
have to still stay within the bounds of what our committee is and as, someone from the town, as an individual in the town, you could kind of, pursue in a different avenue, talking with John whatnot of what's going on with, engaging employees. But as far as the committee as a whole, I think all we can do is kind of be in touch with John about it, and maybe pressure isn't the right word, but
I mean, really, that
Inquire.
pressure should come from the select board, not
Correct.
this
Right.
committee, right?
yes.
So, I mean, I think
Yeah.
it's a speaking point, but I think the select board needs to have that conversation
Sure.
with whomever, whether it's John or the heads, and say,
It's
are
John.
you talking to your
Right.
staff? What do they need? What are they not happy with? Like, I heard the last meeting, I stayed really quiet the last meeting, but I heard we can't, like, the employees are nervous. The employees, like, our job's not to make the employees nervous. Our job is to make sure the employees are happy and they feel like they have a job that they seem satisfied with. So I think that's big. And if you're being listened to, like, then I can have a high school student, I can have a college student, I can have a 45, 50-year-old employee with me, and as long as I'm listening, they're happy. So, yeah, I think it's big. I think that's a huge speaking point, maybe not for us, but for the select board, sorry.
No, no,
But
and
I
right,
think I think it's definitely huge.
right, it's our job as John's boss to make sure that John is having the engagement. It's not our job, sorry, it's not our job to have those, it's not the select board's job to have those conversations with the employees, but it's our job to make sure that John is having those conversations. So I think that's where it comes back to me as your liaison, it comes back to the collaboration between this committee and the select board. I'm very happy to see that, you're meeting early and often, because I think last year, a lot of the challenge was, we get to the meeting with the book. It's too late, right, at that point. So I think it is, I agree with you. I was laughing with Denise, and you'll get this reference. I was laughing with Denise a couple weeks ago about the Masterpiece program. When we both worked at the bank, we had a Masterpiece program, right? That's what we asked. We asked people to give us their ideas. They're the ones doing the work. And I think, we've got to figure out what that looks like. We've got to figure out, we don't want employees to feel that their jobs are in jeopardy or that they're never going to get a raise. That absolutely is not the feeling. But we want to empower them to tell us, I do this job every day, and I use a weed whacker that I spend 20 minutes every day trying to start. Right? So let's not do that. Here's an idea I have, let's do X, Y, and Z. And how do we put John to empower the employees to give us those types of ideas?
And it creates
So,
a value
absolutely.
in the employee. Like,
Absolutely.
they want to feel like
They're
being
invested,
heard
right,
and
right.
their talent. And
Mhm.
so, yeah. So I disagreed with the previous conversation last meeting of like the employees are taking like this as like we're attacking them. I don't think that is. I think the employees of the town want to feel valued and feel like when they go down the road in a town truck, that the residents are happy to see them. And I don't think they're feeling that
Well,
right now.
I think some of the challenge or some of the concern was when you start talking about employee pay, employee benefits, all of that, naturally, right? You automatically get on the defensive. And I don't think that was the goal or the purpose of those discussions. It was, how can we, as a town, find a better solution that doesn't impact the employee, but also puts us in a position where we don't have these gigantic increases into the budget. So I think it's a balance, but I completely agree that it's not this group having the discussion with the employee, but it's how do we make sure John is having those discussions, and how do we make sure that, it is a good, positive experience, and it is we're empowering you to help us, help the town to save money. So, I'm here to help.
That's what we like to hear.
You're from the government.
Right, here to help.
Is
All right.
Is there a report on that though? Like, coming back, like throughout the town of like, is there a circle back on who's being held accountable and if the meetings happened right now? Or is
Right
it
now,
just,
I would say no.
Or is it just, I think they're doing it?
Yeah, I mean, right now, in complete transparency, I'd say no.
Okay.
It's a discussion that we're gonna have to have. Like, we
I don't
have to
think it
have
has
with John.
anything to do with the budget committee.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
just
yeah,
off the cuff
no, yeah,
question.
no.
All right.
No.
Okay, so I think we'll move on to recommendation F, provide budget findings to the department heads and town manager before the first draft budget is developed. I think that's kind of our goal of meeting as often as we can, and I think we're in line with that. They go on to address the process again as a whole, investigating key budget items and anything that can be done. I think from here, I think basically everything they describe in the rest of this is everything we've already talked about and what we've already come up with at last meeting for coming up with our new timetable and how we alter that timetable with additional budget committee meetings. So, if we have no other comments on that letter, then we can move on to some of the goals that we as a committee want to start coming up with. In the last meeting, we talked about kind of breaking our goals out also into short-term goals, goals that we can achieve or get done this year, and long-term goals that might be something that's going to take 2 to 3, 4 budget cycles to implement. Things like the process might be a long-term goal. Things like direct budget alterations might be a short-term goal. So I think what I'll do first is just open up the floor to anyone else who has a short or long-term goal that we want to bring to the front.
I think we need to reduce healthcare costs.
Okay, so going forward this year, I think
For
that
this
will
year.
be, that will be a short-term goal that we're gonna look at. That will be a big one, and it of course is
Yeah.
can be a big money saver.
Yeah, and I mean, it's for the, whatever we set, the committee gets set up, I think, to finalize the official recommendation here, but I would put a number on it of like $250,000 at least, like significant savings. I think, I've done some analysis comparing our spending with Camden's spending. That's all I've done. I haven't gone to every town. We spent this budget year 37% of employee wages on healthcare benefits. Camden spent 26% of wages. And if you close that gap, that's like $500,000 of savings. So we're talking, reducing it by 30, it's $1.5 million this year in the budget. So, that would be a big jump, taking $500,000 out of health insurance. And, this, for any employees listening, anything, this isn't cutting health insurance. This isn't removing dependent care. This is things like looking at plans that are offered, things like looking at, reimbursement ratios, things like that, and looking at alternative providers even, and maybe it means some changes to plans and coverage and whatnot, but, it has to be done in consultation with, with the employees and whatnot, of course. But I think we need to be looking for sizable cuts in the health insurance line, and I would be curious.
When you were comparing Camden and Rockport, are both towns getting their health insurance through the MMA?
I believe
What
so.
are the number of employees that are married and do family plans versus the number of employees that are single or have
Right. Well, yeah, so
other
I don't,
insurance?
all I have is Camden's public budget document, which doesn't outline that, just as ours doesn't.
That is something that needs to be taken
It
into.
absolutely is. However, I do know that Camden's dependent care reimbursement, it seems to be lower than ours, which I think would be reasonable. I mean, we spend, Camden has, more employees, 75 employees versus our sort of 55 roughly. They spend an average of $17,000 per employee per year. We spend an average of $27,000 per employee per year. So, yes, there definitely are different things. There's different, blends and whatnot. But I think as any organization, you can't just take healthcare. Healthcare premiums are going. Most organizations, healthcare premiums go up. You have to look at what are you offering, because you can't just be, beholden to, the healthcare markets.
I think they did a study of that, what, 4 or 5 years ago, do you remember?
Well, they did a wage and
Wait, yeah.
benefits survey, yeah.
Yeah,
Actually, 2 in the last 20 years. I was on the earlier one.
right, yeah. So certainly having a health committee look into it and do all of the bells and whistles and make sure you're comparing apples and apples and not apples and oranges is something that we can look into.
Yes.
And
And I think with that short-term goal, we're looking at on the timetable in September sometime when we meet with the select board. And I'm assuming also John will be at that one. Come up with a committee to investigate that one further, as it
yeah,
is one of our
and
big
certainly bring
goals.
the MMA in on it, because supposedly they offer the best
Sure.
deals in the state.
Well,
so-
I'm sure it's the biggest pool for municipal employees, yeah.
For a short-term goal, can we start requesting the revenue and expenses for EMS? And I don't know if it's a short-term goal, but Clay, could you talk to John about all the things we talked about here tonight, and have him come to maybe our next meeting and, give us his feedback, why he can or can't do that? Is that a goal?
Yeah, I think, I don't know as if we would classify that as a goal, but I for sure will be talking with him. I'll be gone for 2 weeks basically after this meeting, so I won't be back in touch until September. But in the first 2 weeks of September, I'm going to meet with him and at a minimum go over all this and put all of this on his radar. I don't know if we will have another meeting, just budget committee meeting, before our kind of shooting for our September meeting with the select board also. And maybe we could have this at that, because I would assume he'll be at that meeting. Maybe we can address some of these things with him then as a committee so that he's getting input from all of us, But I certainly will be meeting with him to at least get some major feedback and give him a heads up of where we're going. And then I'll get back to you on after
Okay.
that.
Should we have him come here at some point?
At some point, yes, absolutely, which I
Yeah.
think will be our next select board budget committee meeting in September. I don't know if we'll be able to pull off a just budget committee meeting before that. I don't know what we were looking at for a time frame on that right now. But, yes, I mean, I think
Okay.
at a minimum, he'll be there so we can address these with him then also. But I do at least have for a short-term goal requesting EMS. I wrote down budget, but I don't know, is there necessarily budget?
Yeah, I don't want the budget.
Budgetary numbers, whatever they're,
Income,
Yeah.
expense, revenue, expense.
yep.
I mean, some sort of KPI sort of analysis, I think, would be
KPI?
a key performance indicator, sorry, sort of like a, number of calls or whatever that, just some basic metrics would be.
Yeah, those are interesting, but it really, in this case, it really detracts from what our purpose here is. You can have all sorts of medical quality indicators, but, again, that's not really our job. That's more the select board to follow up on.
Sure. I don't need to push it. I think if they're easily accessible, if it's a push button, I don't see why we wouldn't have more data. I'm not asking for somebody to compile, spend 3 days compiling a report, but.
I'll want your analysis.
Yeah, I mean, I think most information that we may high level be looking for is quite easily generated and is already there. We just have to
It's
get
already
it
there.
together.
Yeah, exactly.
So related to that, I don't know if this is a short-term or long-term, or maybe it's intermediate term, but related to these two pieces around what, not just what are we spending, but what should we be spending? I looked at the salary survey, we reached out to these towns to figure out what they're paying their people. I would encourage us to do a spending survey or some type of analysis of what these other towns are spending for the stuff that we're spending money on. So all the town reports, town budgets are all public documents. I don't know who to get to do this. This may be a question for John about, again, I know we're being cautious about adding to the workload of the town and the budget team specifically, but you know, the salary survey was interesting. There was 20 some odd towns that were analyzed. That list of towns was put together because they were comparable to us in some way. It was Belfast and Camden, and some of them were Yarmouth, and I mean, they were all over the place. But they were towns that were about our size and approximate valuation and these kinds of things. And I think if we had 5 or 6 of those towns that we thought were kind of the towns that were comparable to us, and we spent some time looking at what they're spending, at least, this goes back to what I said earlier about targets, at least we have some sense of what these other towns are spending for their EMS, what are they spending on town planning, what are they spending on public buildings, because otherwise we're just walking around in a dark room. We don't have anything to say, why is our spending so out of whack with these other towns? I mean, you looked at Camden, I mean, that's great, but I have to think we can learn more by, and we don't need to look at every town, and I do think Maine Municipal has a lot of this data, but I have to think by looking at a half dozen towns and spending some time with their budgets, we could say, all right, well, these are places where we're outliers on some of these things. So again, whether that's short-term or long-term depends a little bit on who we can find who can do it. Well, how long it will take them to do it, but it would be helpful to have some index of what these towns are spending that we can compare ourselves to.
When we did the wages and salary survey 2 surveys ago, so 15 years ago or so, each committee member took 3 towns.
Yep.
And the important thing, in order to make the information accurate and appropriate, is to find out the mitigating circumstances. I mean, particularly wage and survey, you have somebody, well, this person makes X amount of money, but 20% of it comes in from the stipend for this job and this job and this job. Similar to, you know, looking at the road maintenance for a town. Mm-hmm. You know, you have to get the inside story. That's spending time with them on the phone, saying, "Oh yeah, we had 3 culverts washed out." I mean, we had 3 culverts washed out as well. So that skews our numbers as well. So that, you know, again, and you mentioned it, caution against doing staff time, and if we want to know that, you know, we charge ourselves with it. But it becomes more conversational than actually money. The conversation behind the figure is as important as the figure.
Okay, I like that. I think it will be a bit of a short and long term. I think we will want to see if we can address it this year, but also continue to in following years. One of the short-term goals that I kind of want to at least get on all of our radars is more focus on the capital improvement plan and what parts of that plan we need to execute more effectively. Some of that being, you know, roads. Last year, I think it was 3 years ago, we increased our, you know, highway budget to bring it up to a point where, you know, John did the simple formula of we have X miles of roads, we got to do everything in 10 years, everything lasts 10 years, so we got to spend so much a year on roads based on the cost of repaving. Last year, we kind of lumped in all this gravel and a couple different things into different line items, which was like another 10 or 15%, if I remember right. And we almost just kind of breezed over it because I, at least, don't have enough specific knowledge of where that was going and on what jobs, all that. So I think focusing, you know, that will be incorporated into the CIP and focusing more on the CIP and how our budget this year, much like we're gonna do with a comprehensive plan, how our budget this year is following our goals of the capital improvement plan. If we're able to actually improve our capital this year, or if we've improved too much over the last few years and we need to hold off on spending, that may be a big, I mean, just the amount of vehicles we purchased in the last 2 years, 3 years is pretty aggressive too. So,
It's a great idea, and my question would be that Walker alluded to it, and for Michelle, is this committee that's being formed for capital improvement implementation plan, are they gonna be of help to us to address exactly the things Clay was talking about? Is that been put together? And
I don't know, to be honest, so I think we could build that into the mission, if you will, because I think it's important, right? If we're gonna
Yeah.
put this committee together, they should have the engagement across the board, so.
it'd be kinda nice if they
Yeah.
could do a quick look through and then feed us, here's something for you guys to look at.
Consider.
I'm not interested in zoning in West Rockport, but
Right.
new roads, services, stuff like that.
I think the more we can do with any of the committees that we have to make sure that we're all engaged, the better off we'll be. So I think we've gotta set that as an expectation, right? That we are communicating. It doesn't make any sense for anyone to do one thing in a vacuum, so.
Would your short-term goal would be okay with you to just say, encourage interaction with the comprehensive plan implementation committee?
yeah, I like
I think
that.
that's really what you're sort
Yeah.
of looking
Right.
for.
Yeah, I mean, there's still kind of these two different comprehensive plan and capital improvement plan.
Yeah.
And I think we're basically meshing those, but that is, I think in a nutshell, how we can phrase it so that it's, encompasses all of that.
Is there anything in place right now for like X dollar amount and over, like it's under review for a purchase for any department? Is there anything in place right now for that?
You mean,
Under approval from whom?
Town
Just
manager,
town
used to be
manager, like,
$5,000
or, I
bucks,
mean,
wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm
Yeah,
just
I think it
saying,
used to
like,
be
if
5.
we're over budget and I wanna go out as a department head and buy X for 55,000 or 60,000, is there any checks and balances in place for that?
Well, let me
Because
tell
my
you,
budget's there.
let me tell you, the woman who writes the checks, Megan, you're not gonna get a check, I can tell you that. So, yeah, I mean, there are checks and balances. I don't know what the amount is, but,
Within the budget.
yeah, I mean,
Well,
it has
I-
to be within the budget.
But-
There's
Like,
definitely a
we approved their
protocol.
budget, I'm just trying to say like, okay, if it's coming, and again, I'm new to this, so say your budget runs up on November 15th, and you start writing checks October 15th to spend your money, like, we could come under budget. Like, is there any checks and balances on that, or no?
Yeah, I mean, that's what the finance director does. I mean, there are like, I think there's a 2-sign of some sort, depending on the amount that, 2 people have to sign that. Megan keeps track of all of the ins and outs that are coming in. So absolutely, I'm not concerned about that. In the fact that someone could go out and write a check for 60,000 and put us over. I mean, I think we'd
Yeah.
have the appropriate checks and balances for that.
I think we should set some numerical targets for the budget per our earlier conversation. And I think there's probably maybe there's a short and long-term component to that. What do we
Yeah.
this year and in general? I think the town residents, I would say, are due a very light year. And, like a 0% increase, I think would be in line.
So a 0% increase means if you're giving COLA, it means you take $600,000 out of the budget.
Correct.
Well, assuming you're keeping all those employees.
Yeah.
There's that.
Policy.
Yes, zero, man, that's gonna be tough. I mean, that's why we're here.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, no, I'm not saying it's going to be easy, and I'm not saying it's going to be done, and ultimately it's,
You know, I
Not
was
up
looking
to
at
us, but-
today's inflation figures, and I agree, we don't necessarily need to use inflation, but, you know, I've discovered there's like 1 million inflation figures. You know, there's a municipal inflation figure, and some are harder to get than others, but with today's numbers that are out, I mean, I was thinking, you know, let's just try to limit our increase to 5%. That's generous, considering inflation's running 2.7 to 3.2, depending on who you look at.
yeah, I don't disagree, but I do think that I would put the upper limit of our target at right around where inflation is. And, you know, I think it's time to find some efficiencies elsewhere. I mean, if you can get $250,000 of healthcare savings, that helps an awful lot too, right?
Yeah, 4 years ago, I would have been thrilled with 5%. If we had stayed on I did this math, if we had stayed on 5%, instead of going to 16%, this budget would have been $8 million instead of $12 million. And if we had stayed on 5% growth, I mean, it would be 8.6 next year, 9.1, it would go up at a pretty reasonable level. Instead, it's gonna be 12.7 and go up from there. So, I can't support a budget that goes up at 5% after this kind of a leap. If we'd stayed at 5%, great, but we didn't. We made a huge leap. And I've sort of figured 1%. If we went if we wanted to stay on the same glide path we were at 5%, we would have to go at 1% growth for about 10 years to get us back to where we would have been going up at 5%. That's how big this leap was the last 4 years. So we have to figure out some way to get this under control. So, and I don't think it's as simple as, you know, it's gonna cut coal or whatever. Well, we've got other things, we haven't talked about regionalization at all. And how we can figure out how to do so, that's gotta be some kind of a goal in here somewhere.
Oh, that should be a long-term goal, is regionalization.
We went and talked to John, we talked about years ago, regionalization was a big thing, everybody was working hard on it. There were groups working on it, there was a lot of effort, and now it just seems to have dried up. So I don't know why, I'm not entirely sure what the town can do. I think this is a good conversation for John to have with us about what are the efforts that he's making, what does he need from the people in town to move those conversations forward. But we can't, you know, one of the most frustrating experiences of those meetings was having Chief Gagné sit there and say, I could merge the two police forces in an afternoon. It can be done. He just said, but he's not under any pressure to do it. Nobody seems to, nobody's given him the directive to do it. It can be done. Savings almost certainly could result. It's just not being done. So we gotta do something on that front as well, but whatever the spending target is, it's got to be, if not zero, pretty close.
What was the major factors last year for the increase?
EMS budget.
It was,
So was that
Salary.
EMS budget year over year?
it was
Or
No,
was
last
that
year was
the
the
initial-
first year of
first
the
year.
EMS
well, it was the
budget.
first full
Full
year.
year.
Okay.
So that was
yes.
the capital improvements with it? Should I, like the
No, no.
buying of the stuff, or is
Salary.
that year over
Employee
year expense?
salaries.
That was,
Adding 8 town employees.
So that will never change. Alright, so to
I mean,
do,
as long as
I'm
we
just
change,
thinking like if we could,
it's a staple now that,
right,
of our
so it's it's, alright.
It's an ongoing cost.
So I'm just thinking like as a taxpayer, like I'd love to see the budget bounce down, but if that's not like, hey, we need to buy this, this, and this, and now it's behind us, but it doesn't sound like the case.
Unfortunately.
Okay, well, a friend of mine told me a while ago, a long time ago, that to get things done at a committee, you make a motion. So I'll make a motion that our short-term goal is to limit this next budget to 1%. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
okay.
Understanding that's not binding, but that's a goal.
It's a goal,
It's a
sure.
goal for the
Yeah,
committee,
right.
Right,
Yeah.
we can't,
Just,
right, make it happen.
So discussion, right, before a vote?
Yep.
Yeah.
when we say things like this out loud, 0%, 1%, I'd really like to get an idea of whether that's even in the realm. Is there any other, community in the state of Maine doing a 3% or under budget year to year at this point? It's
Rockland said a few
practically,
years.
it's practically, and I'm doing this through the lens of what happened about 8 or 9 years ago when the select board said, show us this, budget was 0, 2, and 4%. It's potentially so incredibly, unattainable, and therefore, a sort of monstrous thing to live under for a while, to be declaring our goal is a 0%. I mean, I can't, there's no way I can vote for
The
this
monstrous
motion.
thing to live under is kids can't afford houses in this town. It's unaffordable except for the very rich. And that's continuing unless we do something about this spending. It's out of control. I agree, 1% is hard. It's hard, there's no question. But we're setting a goal, and we want to say to John, we're deadly serious about getting this budget under control. We need you to work on this. We're going to work on it. We're going to do these comparatives. We're going to do a ton of work. But that's where we're aiming. That's where we're going.
And I don't think it's take the overall average, like if you go up 15, 16%, and then you're saying, oh, we're gonna be at 1, like you gotta cut back somewhere. You gotta pull in.
I'm not.
So basically what I'm saying is, like, if you go up 16%, 15%, wherever the averages were the last 5 years.
For that year, yeah.
So then you come back and say, all right, you spent all your money, now just keep it at 1 and just stay even keel. Like, I think it's okay to ask that. And to go back and say, like, the kids, like my kids won't be able to live here. There's no way. And you talk to the school, they're firing not firing, but they're cutting back on teachers because they don't have the attendance right now.
Right.
So that's another ripple effect, and that we'll see in the school budget.
Right.
Because they're not getting the federal and state money. So if you only have the wealthy, which I benefit from for my business, like, absolutely. But
Nothing against the wealthy, but
no, if I
know.
wasn't in my service industry, I could not afford to live here. I would have sold 5 years ago. Like, my taxes for my house is more than my mortgage. That's sad. So, and that's what
they're about to go up again, so be ready.
yeah, I just got my new letter. So, but it's, I think at some point we need to tell the town employees, you need to go without. So instead of getting a new truck every other year, maybe you get one every 5 years. Instead of mowing the lawns every 7 days, you mow them every 10. Like, there's gotta be compromise. There has to be. Otherwise, our elderly and the locals are gonna have to move. And I've talked to many of them.
There's nobody in this room with a personal financial situation as bad as me. I owe the town $25,000 for my past stuff, and nobody here's on that list. So I understand what you're saying. I don't know how long I can live in Rockport either. But before you have inflammatory comments like buying a truck every 2 years, we don't replace a given truck every 2 years. We have a fleet of X and they roll over. Before doing that, the thing that I would vote for the most is to contact other towns, same way as you were singing, and see if anybody is anywhere near that realm. Because what happens when we sit here saying, we're going to do it 0%, 1%, sorry.
It's a good impression.
Yeah, oh, okay. That's an amalgamation impression. Is to see whether it is anywhere in the realm of possibility. And I understand that there's a difference between possibility and significant intent. But we're not so special in the pressure to keep things down from taxes. We're not, this committee is not the well, they running around saying 0%, they are the most aggressive in the state. But I just would like to come back to something that's workable, defensible, and something that doesn't, I'll stop referring to the time when the select board said 0, 2, and 4, but it was like a big dark cloud. And that affected the work that they had to do otherwise, much less defend their existence. So, from a, that's the emotional side of the monetary stuff.
I have here in a Midcoast Villager article from May 5th this year, Rockland budget comes in less than 1% increase. And that's where all the young people are moving.
There you go. Okay, well, thank you for that. I mean,
Yeah,
that's not,
so, and, I think you're not gonna get there with business as usual, and that's, I think, the point. It's, the point of saying 0 or 1%, 0 or 1%, sorry.
good.
That's how you have to say that from now
Yeah,
on.
that's right, yeah.
The Russian judge gives you some.
Is to shake things up and to, really, indicate that, no, this isn't about, like, we're just gonna do everything we always did, we're just gonna do it a little bit more cheaply than we usually do. It's what has to go. What do we have to change? And it's not about making employees worried. It's not about making employees not, I completely agree with Craig. We want them to feel involved and like they're empowered to be part of the solution here, and not, it's not a case of, we're taking this from you. These are systemic issues that, with the select board and the town, government at the top, we need to figure out a way to put a lid on it. And, yes, that means something's going to get cut. It probably, like I said last year, I think cutting health insurance costs is probably the least painful thing to start with. Because otherwise you are talking about, do we need this many employees in this department? And those are much more painful conversations, but those are the only conversations that this town is going to be having if we don't figure out ways to keep these costs down. That's my spiel. Sorry, I couldn't do it in character the whole time.
We have a special filter on that.
Excellent.
Okay, well, there's a motion and a second. And
Yeah, I think,
discussion.
just to add into the discussion too, our motion is to limit the budget increase to 1%.
To set a goal of later.
Yes, that's how I wanted to incorporate the goal. This is not, our motion is not to specifically limit it to 1%, but to set a goal to limit it.
Correct.
To 1%. I think those are two very different things of saying it's at 1% and saying our goal is at 1%. And, with this motion, how far does it actually go also? I guess the execution, I don't know what the execution of this motion is gonna be, other than we're just all using this as a potential goal, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a target.
It's a target.
Right.
Yeah, I don't for a minute think we're gonna do it for less than 1%. But I like
think we can do
that
better
it
than
sends the message, and, we'll see where it goes.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly at least gets it on everyone's radar that we are looking to be more financially.
I, for the record, think we can do it. I don't even think it's all that hard necessarily. It's going to require rethinking some things, certainly. But this is not a crazy thing to do. I mean, this is, most organizations, like I said, don't just get to, snap their fingers and say how much money they need to do something. They have to live within the realities of what's going on. And yeah, costs are going up. That doesn't always mean your revenue is going up. Sometimes just means you get squeezed.
Okay.
Sorry.
No.
On my soapbox. Step aside.
So any more discussion on the motion? Okay, then we'll move to a vote on the motion. All in favor of setting a goal to limit the budget increase to 1%? Raise your hands. That's 5. Against? Okay, no one abstains.
I'm sorry, I missed the count.
5-4. You, Steve, me, Walker, and Craig. 2 against are Jeff and Helen.
Okay.
No abstain. 2 not present. I'm just trying to write this all down so we have it. Pardon the delay. All right, so moving past that, any other long or short-term goals?
I have a quick question, it was not necessarily goals, but
Yep.
did anyone, on behalf of this particular meeting, and then more to the point, future meetings, contact the press to have them schedule it in their viewing thing? I mean, presume, since we're talking about transparency and outreach and everything like
No,
that.
good point.
think-
I did not, nope, what we did was basically post it on the town website as
Right.
public
Yeah,
advertising.
something to think about.
Yep.
Reach out early on.
No, I
Yeah,
like
I
that.
don't think it showed up on the town website.
It was on the calendar,
Okay.
but
Well, yeah, we should discuss this more a little bit further down the agenda there.
Okay. Any other short or long-term goals?
You want to just review those for us again, Clay, please?
Yep. So the short-term goals I have so far are gonna be to review healthcare costs by way of committee, et cetera. Number 2 is gonna be requesting EMS financials, KPIs, high-level stuff. Number 3 is gonna be focus on the CIP and inclusion with a comprehensive plan committee possibly. And number 4, we'll be setting our target. Number 5, we'll be possibly contacting the press and continuing to work for public engagement.
There was one where Doug said, encourage partnerships with comp plan and capital improvement. Did you?
Yeah.
You
I
rolled
went-
that in something
Yeah,
else?
with number 3, yeah.
Okay, so that's a double entry on mine.
And then for long-term goals, well, I guess actually, yes, for long-term goals, which may also turn over to be a short-term goal as well. Investigate, pursue an analysis and spending survey, which may include looking at other municipalities in similar districts to see what they're spending on their budgets and where their costs increase are, what they have been, especially relative to ours. Number 2 is to continue target setting in the future, such as our 1% target. And number 3 is look deeper into regionalization and continue to investigate that, and if there's cost savings, where there's cost savings, how much, and can we pursue those?
There were a couple of tasks up front. I'm not sure if they fall into the goals, like things like the charter review, or what's the best way to communicate. I don't know if we want to put that as like a long term. It's already sort of included above, but
Yeah,
It's a little bit of
Some of
overlap.
this may be, I mean, this is where we need
Yeah.
John for some of this, because
Yeah.
on the regionalization thing, I would just like to have a good sense of how is that happening, who's doing it, what can be done. There may be, I don't know what we can do around regionalization, but somehow we gotta light a fire under that again. And
Sure.
So I would need John's feedback
Yep.
on how that could be done. So maybe there's a separate category there that's the John
Action
meeting.
items, yeah.
The
sure.
Ask John list or something like that. Because it could be that he would say, look, it would be helpful if you guys, blah, 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 whatever. But I don't know what that would be.
Sure, yeah,
But something like that, because we can't keep doing this. But
okay. Yeah, so I think what I have for the John meeting is, you know, target for a budget increase where, you know, possibly the LD1 target or whatever the nomenclature is on that, where did that go? What the scope or whatnot of including the budget committee vote on the ballot, clarify what is recommendation. Lessons from the budget committee vote, lesson from the budget vote last year and how close it was. And some of the high points of the budget to the public, if we can take those lessons and communicate that with the public also. And then get more info somehow with as close as the vote was on what specifically on the budget they were not happy with, anyone who voted against it, I guess, or for it, what they were happy to see also. And if we need to separate that out like it was in the past on votes. Also request the EMS monthly budget figures, which I think is possibly a short-term goal. And then a public budget review meeting. I want to talk with him about that and see if, more or less let him know we would like to pursue something there. And then I think that was more of a long-term goal of analysis and spending survey of other towns around.
See, Jeff would put that as the very first thing, in terms of just being a framework within which we,
Yeah.
you know, we bounce around inside of that. I don't think I've ever referred to myself in the third person.
I like it. It suits you.
Elon Musk.
All right, so I think that mostly encompasses what I've heard for goals put forth.
That's a good list.
Anything
A
else?
lot, yeah.
There is one right now.
Okay. So moving on to the agenda, next thing on the agenda is a discussion of the proposed select board and budget committee timeline with recommendations. I'm assuming everyone had looked at the timeline, we went over it last time. I think the only thing that I probably will end up seeing is that we may be adding in, or will be most likely adding in just budget committee
Yep.
meetings. And, you know, the reasoning behind that is just so our budget committee meetings can stay focused more or less on the budget itself, along with the process of the budget. We don't want to exclude anyone else from coming to those meetings or having input on those meetings, but that, where it is a budget committee meeting, I think we can lead the topic of conversation where we want to steer it, not so much getting sidetracked with just a high number of other topics that we could be discussing, because there's plenty of those. So with that being said, are there any other discussion points or ideas with reference to the budget timetable that we came up with the last meeting?
Just the public meeting, which we've already
Yes,
touched on.
yep, okay. I need to add that.
No, and I appreciate that some work went into this. So
Definitely.
I appreciate that John and the team put this together.
Absolutely.
The timeline exists where? Did that get sent out via email?
It exists on paper to the best of my knowledge.
Yes,
Yes.
let's see if
I
we
don't know if I
can,
ever got it.
I have no idea where it is now.
I have it.
I don't even know.
Oh,
Enough,
I'm sorry.
have you got it? Okay, I got it.
My things weren't together.
One of them exists. on
Okay,
my
so I will
kitchen
get
shelf.
that sent out electronically. don't know who actually has that copy, but we will get it sent out electronically. Okay. All right, so, section 5, or, agenda topic 5, the budget committee data requests from the finance department. I think that will be basically, some of the EMS stuff.
That's sort of the short term. I mean, I think we'll put together a health insurance committee,
Yep.
and that's gonna be data heavy, but,
I suggested adding this agenda item, and my thought behind it really was, you know, as, not necessarily this meeting, maybe some things come out of our goal discussions, but just to assemble in one place the things we want to request from the select board or Megan or whatever.
Yeah.
Just so that it's, you know, condensed and concise and, you know, we can make a case.
Yeah, I think this came from the meetings, the earlier meetings, like what didn't we have that would have been helpful
Right.
to have? Not that, I have no interest in making this thicker than it is, but
Yeah.
it did feel like there were pieces, like we talked about overtime. I have no idea what the town spent on overtime. I don't think it appears in here anywhere. Like, you know, those kinds of things I think would be, I don't know, we need to generate the list tonight,
Right.
but if we have a running list of, you know, these are additional pieces that could be helpful to have in here or to have available to us as we move forward.
There used to be overtime listed in the budget, at least for the police department and I think Public Works. And
Yeah,
then there's
because they
the,
both run on overtime
right, but I don't think
and
I've seen
comp
it.
time.
Yeah.
We're, as the budget committee elected and all that good stuff, we're approaching our requests with the town through John for everything, as the select board has to do. I mean, we're not gonna dump a whole bunch of stuff on Megan. It goes through John.
Yes, I think it is gonna depend on what the request is. If it's one single piece of information here or there, then I think we can approach Megan and get some information. If it's a continuous, request or process that we're changing,
Staffing meeting, yeah.
then I think that will be get in touch with John. But, you know, if we just wanted to know one number that's already in a compromised or a compiled data, we can approach Megan and say, hey, what's that number? I don't think that's outside of our scope. But if we say, you know, hey, we're thinking in our process, we're gonna want this continuously, monthly, bi-monthly, whatever, bi-weekly, who knows, then I think that will be something that we're going through John with, or select board with, to see if they're okay with it as well. Not okay with it, but if they're on board with it as well.
Yeah, well, not to create a log jam, but I would have us consider, and anything we want out of any of the employees, we go through John.
I would
Yes.
agree with that.
Because he's, on, no matter how small, because he's the guy that, it's easier for him to say, well, you know, things are backed up in that department or something, you know, we'll have that back to you in a couple of days. It's easier for him to do that than the person you're tasking with it.
Yep, and I think the only reason I say, you know, we can go through Megan is because she is the liaison for the town, for this committee. So I think you know, I wouldn't necessarily do that with anyone else as a town employee, but because Megan is the liaison and she does want to also stay included in it all,
Yeah, reasonable point.
maybe that
Yeah,
is necessarily in her job description also.
Your John meeting list is getting longer, but that's probably a thing to say, look,
Set the
here's
expectation.
my decision tree on this. If it's an ongoing thing we're gonna ask her to do, we're gonna talk to you about, or an ongoing piece that we think we're gonna need, wanna talk to you about like what that's gonna take from the staff. But these kind of one-offs, like, hey, we'd love a sheet in here that has whatever on it, that we could go directly to her and just ask him whether that makes it good. Because he also, you know, it may be just easier, and she may be fine with a periodic work. I mean, when I joined the committee, I went over, we sat down, we went through the budget. I mean, she's great about it, so I don't think it's gonna be a problem.
Yeah,
But
right.
in terms of creating ongoing work, and I do want to get to, like, I would love to get her in here and talk about, like, what does it take to put this together? Do we need all of this? Is there some way we can, you know, so part of the process is, you know, are we using her to her best abilities? Can she be more of a strategic thinker around the budget as opposed to generating this stuff every year? So, you know, I think I'd love to figure out a way to maximize her impact on the town, if, to the degree that it's not already. She's very impactful, so, but, you know,
Sure, yeah.
those kind of discussions would be great to have.
Will she be joining us in future meetings, or is she just,
I think so. I think that's the plan.
okay, because she wasn't here last month and
Yeah,
today,
she
so I
couldn't
wasn't
make it.
quite sure what the.
Yeah, yeah. She couldn't make it tonight. I think that's the plan, that she'll be,
Yeah.
Okay, all
she'll
right,
be here.
okay.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, I think it's just a patch right now, but it's, you know, she is our liaison, so that is our intent.
Yeah, okay.
But I don't want to lose sight of let's keep a running list of information that would be helpful to have, and then we can decide where to get it and when and from who. But
Yep.
we should have a running list.
Okay. Moving on to item 6 on our agenda, communication of goals and budget committee progress to the community and select board. So I think we'll just start off here with, maybe open it up to Doug in a letter that he has proposed.
Yeah, I got thinking how important it's gonna be to communicate what we're trying to do this year that's different what we've done in the past, because, you know, the budget's getting a lot of talk and how close things were. And I really want people to, in the community, in the select board, everybody, to know, hey, we heard you, and we're gonna try to do something different this year. Now, I don't have the golden pen that Steve does, who almost single-handedly trashed the budget vote last year. But I did my best to put it together, and, you know, I ran it by my wife, and, you know, she looked at it and says, boy, this just sounds exactly like coal. So I made some changes to try to make it, you know, fairly neutral. I recognize Clay's comment about having emails sent to Megan, but, you know, I was thinking, okay, well, I'm the secretary of the committee. If people want to send them to me, I'll just forward them to the budget committee. I'm not going to get involved with online arguing with people about stuff. You know, send us your suggestions. Thank you very much. Send it to you folks. And it's just an easy way to get our committee out in front of the public. And I would send this to the newspapers, you know, Midcoast
Sure.
Villager and Penn Bay Pilot, and a lot of people will weigh in on stuff, and that's good.
Yeah, and I think specifically giving them an outlet of where to take their
Yeah.
requests, concerns,
Suggestions,
comments
yeah.
to, it will be clutch. I think just making sure we decide on who that, or where that outlet is.
Yeah, well, I'm happy to do it. I'm the secretary.
Sure.
And like I say, I'll just forward this. I'm not
Yep.
gonna write back to everybody and, you know, but I might say, thank you, you know, message received and distributed. You know,
Sure.
Another
Enough said.
option that would not be hard to do, I'm sure, is to set up a just generic inbox, you know, like budget@rockportmaine.gov or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
That's a
could
great
go to any number of people we want. Maybe it's everybody. We already have budget.
Maybe it's your
committee.
budget committee. I mean, potentially.
Mhm.
You could all have access to it.
Yeah, that's true.
Yep.
I mean, I can't do it.
Just a
I'm not-
general
but I'm
mailbox.
sure that it wouldn't, I do it for my company, it's not hard. And then you have continuity, you know, it's Doug's no longer on the committee in some years forward or whatever, you know, people still have the same email address.
So this introductory letter, I think, was pretty plain vanilla. You know, the next ones may be a little trickier. You know, what are our short-term goals, long-term goals? You know, we got to get that out in front of people.
So when do you think you would want to come to the select board meeting to kind of talk, the first one, like maybe the September meeting? To talk about your short-term and long-term goals?
Yeah, I mean, I think Yes, basically, because that'll be our next meeting. I don't know if we'll have a meeting before then,
Yeah.
and I think we have at least come up with a
Give
relatively
some good
decent.
direction, right?
Yeah,
You know,
right,
just to-
and, you know, that's not to limit it as, this is all we have and this is all we will have.
Right.
This will at least get it on the select board's radar also.
Yep.
So I think that's fair, is to shoot for, the September meeting there.
And that is, I think,
Do we have that
We'd like
scheduled
to
yet?
set-
I don't know as we've
I
had,
don't know, we're kind of, our timeframes have messed up. It's either the 8th or the 15th. Do you know off the top of your head, John?
of September.
Yeah, let me see if we got it here.
It's usually the second
Usually the
Monday,
second,
but
but
they've
we've been kind of wonky the
done a
last.
summer adjustment.
Looks like it's gonna be the 8th.
The 8th of September.
Yep.
Okay.
And then if you needed to push to October, let's see when that is. That looks like it's gonna be Tuesday, the 14th of October, because Monday must be a holiday. Oh yes, Indigenous People Day.
So again, to get back to this letter, this is just sort of an introductory letter, and then the question is, you know, should we try to do one a month? And again, I'm just picturing a folksy, you know, here's what we're doing.
Yeah, I'm not sure as we necessarily want to base it off of time frame as much as we base it off of meetings we have. So, I mean, if we're having an important meeting, that is the information that we want to be getting to the public. So whenever we come up with a milestone or any other information we want to get to them is when we're going to be putting these letters out effectively, is how it's going to work in my head.
I kind of like your fireside chat idea, though, you know? Sort of a,
That's a great idea.
no, I agree.
Must be a fireplace in this town someplace.
Here.
So the details of the letter, should I go ahead and maybe, well, we need to come up with a mailbox, but beyond that, should I just sort of give, now, I would like to have everybody's name who's on the budget committee on it. I mean, that's public knowledge, so just telling people. But should I take this to Diane and ask her to blast it out?
Yeah, I mean, I think at a minimum, it could end up on a little blurb on the town website saying
Yeah,
something to the effect of, the budget committee is here to listen. What do you have for comments?
yeah.
And Doug, I don't have an H at the end of my name, I have an N. H-A-N-N-A-N.
I think that was spell check because,
Okay.
and you're looking at the old one.
Oh, okay, all right, all right.
I know that, but spell check didn't.
Sorry, most people call me Hannah, so, you know, I answered anything.
Okay.
Yeah, well, it's better than what I usually have to answer to. So.
I think one thing that would help this letter is to give people, because right now, you're right, it's very vanilla, and it doesn't give them too much of an idea of what's happening except changes in the wind. But if you mention one or two of the things that would be mentioned, you know, we look forward to potential, well, we're not going to do neighborhood trips, but potential public
Voice of
meeting where
the-
people
voice
come
of
and
the
that sort of thing.
community.
Yeah, that sort of says, you know, it's something to keep it in their memory.
Okay. Okay, well, I'll talk, okay, I'll add in that and talk to Diane. She can probably help me with setting up a mailbox that'll go to the entire committee.
We do have one. We have the budget committee at one currently. I don't know if it's publicly, like if anybody can email to it or not.
Never heard of it.
Yeah, well, it's a thing. I just
Considering
learned about
I
it
don't get most of
last
my
week.
emails, so.
Diane sent it, I think, when I was, when I asked her about how to go about setting up these sorts of things. She informed me it exists, so.
Way ahead of us.
Yeah, look at that.
I take it you emailed that letter?
Yes.
All right. Mine's not loading, so, for some reason. But
I-
was that before I did the whole poll thing, whatever it was?
This was just 5
Yesterday?
days ago, maybe.
Day before?
Yesterday,
Yeah.
maybe?
See,
I think I
another
need
thing
Diane's
at some
notes
point
day
we ought to
before.
talk about is,
Yeah.
you know, we're using, I've been sending communications to both your personal emails as well as your town emails. Now, if the lawyers wanted to get involved, you know, and they did a Freedom of Information Act, they could theoretically start digging around in your
In your
personal
personal
emails.
box.
So I'm a little, you know, I
Send
don't
it to
think
your
everybody
town.
checks
Town.
their town
Send it
email
to your
very
towns.
well, and
Mine gets forwarded and I don't.
so.
Yeah, which is why I typically try to say in all my emails, I'm gonna follow up with a call if this is actual pertinent information, although it's delayed.
Yeah,
It is, I mean, we do need to, if we're gonna be, we are going to be sending information via email. So it will be important to check your email.
When did you send the agenda, for example? Because I have not
That
received
was
anything from
last
you.
night, I think, late.
I check my town email every morning and there was nothing there.
So it came Monday at,
I think 5:30 last night.
Yeah.
That, I'm not sure how to help you with that, Helen. That might be a Diane question.
Well, yeah, I don't get anything from Diane, I don't get, the last thing I saw concerning this meeting was, I think from Doug on Friday, that it was on Tuesday, but we had done a survey that had several Tuesdays, so I asked which one. I think I asked you.
Yeah.
And you got back to me, that's the only thing I have seen concerning this meeting and what we needed to
you
bring
might
to
have a
it.
sort or something on, because
Hmm?
that's, so you might have your box sorted or something so that you're not seeing them.
Or the box
Yeah.
itself may be sorted.
Yeah.
Is it okay to send it to your personal email then?
Yeah.
We need to stay away from using personal emails.
Well-
We're not using personal
No, we
emails.
need to figure out why she's not
Yeah.
getting it.
Right,
It's-
Yeah.
to get you
I
fixed.
mean, I don't know.
It sounds like maybe at least touch base with Diane and see if she can either help get you in touch with a tech person who knows how to fix that.
Yeah, 'cause
or-
I get nothing from Megan, Diane,
Let's
nobody.
see, let's see if I
Because
can here.
we have to use town emails.
Yeah, I get stuff from Ben for the library.
Well, we
Yeah.
should make sure that you're on this budget, because it looks like it's going to the budget committee.
She is, I do
Mailbox,
see
she
a
is, okay.
Helen Shaw. Outlook. The Outlook app, I mean, if you don't have it, it's not terrible on Android or iOS.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, it is.
I think it's terrible.
I think everything Microsoft does is pretty
Yeah,
challenging
I
to
tried
use,
to-
but the Outlook app does work. It sends emails that pop up on your home screen.
That's
Yeah, and
true.
I can't
Sends emails
open
and
them.
everything.
So I would at least touch base with Diane first, just
Okay.
because she in the past has been my point of reference for anything technical.
Well, what email does it have listed there for me?
hshaw@rockportmaine.gov.
Yeah, that's what I was told it was.
Yeah, so I would touch base with her,
Yeah.
and then we'll go from there,
Okay.
see what she says.
And we've agreed that we're taking Megan out from that second paragraph and putting in
Yeah.
budget committee, yeah,
Yeah.
thanks. And enjoy this lovely summer, which is almost over.
Oh, man. Okay, so any other comments or discussion on communication of goals and budget committee progress to the community and select board? Outside of,
I support Doug's general idea of having a regular cadence, I would
Yep.
say. I think
A
that's
regular,
cadence of
Yeah.
communication,
Messaging.
whether
Yeah.
it's, doesn't need to be monthly necessarily, but I think we are hoping to meet monthly, so it might end up being roughly that.
sure, yeah, yeah. Okay. All right, so moving on to meeting schedule for September, October, November, and December. So it sounds like right now, the select board budget committee meeting is gonna be on September 8th, if I got that right.
select board meeting is on the 8th, so you'll come
Okay.
and do a session,
Yep,
okay?
that's what I meant.
September 8th.
September 8th.
And that meeting will not just be about budget stuff, you guys will also be
We have our regular meeting.
doing regular
You'll be an
stuff. but-
agenda topic on that meeting. I'll
Okay.
send an email to John right now before I forget.
Okay.
If it ain't in the device, it ain't in the brain.
What are we gonna say to him?
1%. That's what we
Okay.
target.
Rockport for the other 1%.
Yeah.
All right. And then again in October, when we do our select board and budget committee meet to review proposed CIP prior to the select board adoption, is gonna be on October 14th, Tuesday.
Which is also a select board meeting, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, I
Okay.
guess that's a question. Is that when we would like to meet to discuss reviewing the proposed CIP prior to the select board adoption? Or does the select board want to meet outside of their regular scheduled meeting to discuss that?
I don't know, you tell me.
How long is that likely to be?
I would not imagine that one will be overly long, assuming the CIP has come together somewhat fluently. I think that's the plan, is to put it out, start that CIP process in September. But I think we'll probably also end up, after our September 8th meeting, I think we're gonna end up with a budget committee meeting in there also to at least basically hash out how our meeting with the select board went with covering our goals.
Right, that's a good idea, so maybe early October.
Yeah. I don't have an exact date right now, we'll have to look at that, but we can get that together. Maybe in September.
Well, it's kind of nice if you can set the meeting schedules rather than do it from meeting to meeting to meeting, because, I know at least one of our members is not organized electronically to show up for meetings and stuff, and it's just so much easier if you know, okay, ahead of time, here are the meetings till the end of the year. And sure, not everybody can be there, but work gets done by those that are there, and, as long as we have a quorum, we have a working thing. So I'd sort of like to set some dates right now, carry forward.
I think it's a lot having just organized this meeting. It's certainly a lot easier than sending a doodle poll every month or whatever. And I think the question is, if it's a monthly cadence, I think you can do something like, third Tuesday or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think, from looking at this schedule, it probably works out to be about monthly.
Well, just a recommendation, would you want to do like the first Tuesday of the month, because the select board meets the second Tuesday of the month, or the second Monday of the month, sorry, except when there's a holiday? And then that way, if there's anything that comes out of your meetings, it would give you time to go to the meeting the following week.
Yep, I like that.
Just a thought.
Yeah, so first,
So if you did the
Tuesday.
first Monday or Tuesday of the month, what's up to you?
I think Tuesdays typically, from what I've seen, work better for most everyone.
Then that puts you in a
Okay.
position to be, if something comes out of that, that you need to present to the select board, that would be the following week, for the most part.
By the way, this meeting did make it onto the calendar.
Yeah, it was on the calendar, yeah.
First Tuesday.
Okay, so I like that. So we'll come up with a first Tuesday of every month. We'll slate for a budget committee meeting. And if we don't need to discuss anything, we can cancel it, but that is the tentative plan right now. Okay.
What
Good.
time?
5:30?
I would propose, I know we want to start early, but for someone who gets out of work at 5, I think it's tough to make it here by 5:30 and have any sort of dinner. So if we start at 6, I think is a little more adequate.
That's
I would agree with that.
6?
Okay. Cool. And we'll just verify on the calendar, make sure.
If just
The
looking
room
quickly,
is
it looks
open.
like it's open
Okay.
most first
So we
Tuesdays.
could just,
And is September 8th that first Tuesday?
Oh, no, first,
November, the first Tuesday is election day.
Yeah, I was looking at that. The town office is sort of closed on election day.
well, we can modify that one then.
you could
So
do Monday or
November would be the
Wednesday.
4th? Or is that,
That's election day, the 4th, so
Yeah.
you could do Monday the 3rd, oh, I don't know. what the
No, let's not
third
do
is.
it before.
The 5th?
If we wanted anybody, everybody's crazed before that.
we could get together for a nice strong drink on the
Everybody's
5th?
crazy. Yikes.
5th?
Well, they're busy with their responsibilities.
So what's December the 2nd?
Golly, that's a lot of years away.
I'm out of town that week, so it looks like.
December 2nd.
Yep, the 2nd. Okay.
And what did we decide about the 4th?
Oh, wait a minute.
Do you want to do it the 5th, Wednesday?
Yeah, because, I mean, if you guys are meeting on the,
We're meeting,
10th.
meeting on the 10th, yeah,
Okay.
then we'll want to meet before then at some point.
but not on election day.
Right.
So I think probably it would be easiest to slide it back to the 5th.
Okay. November 5th, 6 PM. So that takes us up pretty much to the end of the year, so.
Mhm.
So the November 5th date is the only one that is not
On a
first
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Correct.
And give me half a second to, September 8th, do we have one in the middle of, after September 8th? Yeah, the 14th.
October 7th, yeah.
Wait a minute.
I'm checking the Opera House, what happens here.
So the 14th is the second Tuesday, right?
The
Of
14th is the second Tuesday.
Okay.
That is
But
when
that's a
we'll
select
meet
board
with the
meeting.
select
It's a
board.
joint
Oh, that's
meeting.
with select board, okay.
The Tuesday, October 7th will be a budget committee meeting.
Okay.
Just the
Yeah,
other-
November 5th, and then December, we haven't picked a date,
December is
The 2nd.
the 2nd.
2nd.
FYI, on October 7, we'll have to displace, oh no, they can go upstairs, never mind. No problem.
You're gonna be dancing again?
Yeah.
Oh, God, that was so much fun. I thought the roof was great.
Who will get those dates to the town though, so they know that we're here at 6 o'clock?
I will get in touch with Diane and let her
Thank
know
you.
that
Yep.
those are our dates. We'll just have to make sure that we're coming up with agendas prior to.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
that she can post agendas.
Yep.
But I'll email Diane. so we can get on the
Speaking of
calendar.
agendas, we should, as item 2, after calling the meeting to order, I think we should be having public comment. You know, if there any public comment, limited to 2 minutes.
Discussion on non-agenda items.
Yeah, that's kind of standard for
Yeah.
almost all the
Public meetings.
committees.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that makes sense. Okay. So I think we've got a meeting scheduled. So I think we've got section 7, pretty much covered, meeting scheduled for throughout the rest of the year, of both budget committee meetings and joint
Joint.
budget committee select board meetings. Okay,
So-
anything else?
Yeah, you were thinking you might add something between September 8th and October 14th, or is that just sort of up in the air right now?
That's the October 7th.
October 7th,
Oh.
Tuesday.
Oh, okay.
We're gonna meet the first Tuesday of every month, with the exception of November, we're meeting Wednesday.
Okay, so there's September 8th, October 7th, October 14th, and November 5th, and December
And
2nd,
December
right?
2nd.
Okay,
Yes.
gotcha.
Got it.
I can tell you right now, I will not be here for October 7th. Be
Okay.
on a train back from Denver,
There you
Nice.
go.
Good for you.
so.
It's a long drive.
Actually, I think that's the coming back from Boston, but whatever. Watch
Okay,
it.
any other questions, comments, concerns?
Nicely done.
Yes, very nice.
Yep.
Yeah.
Very good.
Here, here. Thank
We
you
will
all.
go forward with this and see where we end up. Like I said, I'll get in touch with John and then try to give feedback before that September 8th meeting with ample time to stew on it. Okay, cool. Well, meeting adjourned.
Motion to adjourn.
Oh, motion to adjourn?
I don't need a motion by.
I don't think we actually
Oh,
need
maybe you
it,
don't
right?
need one.
Okay. See you
Right,
on
if
the
you all
next
just
one.
leave.
You didn't want me to vote in the affirmative.
Second.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle.